Let's turn to the Fox News Sunday host, Chris Wallace, now, who's live in Washington. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Chip. How are you?
So some nuances, some different nuances. Depends on the source, depends on the reporter, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm not sure it really matters.
No.
I mean, we're kind of slicing the salami fairly thin here. Either the president ordered McGahn to fire the special counsel and he threatened to quit, or he talked about it and McGahn said it was a terribly bad idea. Clearly, the conversation was brought up and McGahn helped talk the president out of it. The real significance here isn't that fine distinction. It's that you got to figure that the special counsel, who apparently was hearing these stories, one version or the other, from current and former White House officials, that this event happened in June of 2017, just after Mueller was set up as the special counsel, is going to look at this as part of a potential, and I want to emphasize potential pattern, of obstruction of justice. I mean, remember, you've got a month before Comey was fired by the president, and before that, the president asked for a loyalty oath from Comey, and somewhere in the middle of that, he suggested to Comey, allegedly, according to Comey, go easy on Mike Flynn. So the idea that there was serious consideration, whether it was an order or just talk, to fire Robert Mueller is something you got to figure Robert Mueller is going to pay attention to.
Yeah, why wouldn't he? This matter of an interview with the president, much has been discussed on this over the last couple of days, whether he would be under oath, whether he wouldn't be under oath, which really doesn't seem to matter. If you're being interviewed by the FBI, you have to tell the truth. But aside from that, are they still working on the rules, the ground rules for this sort of thing? Do we know, Chris?
Absolutely. We're told that the president's lawyers are in active negotiations with representatives of the special counsel's office. There was some talk on the part of the White House about, well, how about written questions and answers? Nobody thinks that Mueller is going to sit still for that because, among other things, if you get an answer, you're going to want to follow up to the answer. So that you couldn't do that in written questions and answers. That they will sit down. As you say, if they sit down in an interview, you don't have to put them under oath because any lie to the FBI is a crime, as we saw, because both George Papadopoulos and Michael Flynn pled guilty to lying to the FBI. There's talk about the length of the interview. There's talk about what subject matter, how broad the scope will be. But you got to figure that the president eventually is going to be sitting down with Robert Mueller and his investigators in person to answer questions. If he doesn't, remember, Mueller could go to a judge and get a court order and subpoena him to testify before a grand jury under oath. And the big difference there is the president wouldn't have his lawyers with him. He'd be there all alone with the grand jury and the prosecutors.
He would have the pleading the fifth option, right?
Well, legally, yes. Politically, can you imagine the president of the United States? And look, I don't think he'd do it. But if the president of the United States pleaded the fifth on a question of obstruction or collusion, well, we'd have a lot to talk about.
We would. The gaggle, though, outside John Kelly's office, he couldn't have been clearer, Chris. The president was crystal clear. Yes, I'm willing to do this. I'm completely willing to do this, and I'm completely willing to do it under oath, and I look forward to it. And then came his lawyer.
Yeah, but his lawyer just said, and the president did have that one little wiggle room where he said, subject to discussions with my lawyer, and the lawyer said, subject to what we decide. I mean, you got to give yourself a little wiggle room, among other things. I'm sure the lawyers were very frustrated because they're trying to negotiate the best circumstances for this interview, and the president seemed to give away the store. So they're coming back and saying, look, we're still going to talk about this. It's a little like Chuck Schumer when having put full payment for the wall on the table after the shutdown ended, said, well, no, the wall is off the table. Well, no, once you put it out there, it's pretty hard to take back.
It was a one-time offer, like a red light special. Remember those?
Yeah.
I guess they're probably out of business. As this thing moves forward, Chris, it seems the White House is ready. They keep saying this is about to be over, this is about to be over. Eventually, they're going to be right. The country's got to move on at some point.
Well, yeah, but Robert Mueller doesn't. I mean, if you're the prosecutor, you're going to take whatever time you need to do it. I agree with you. I think the country is long ready for this to be over and to have this cloud removed from the president or find out that he did something wrong, but not to be in this kind of limbo that we're in. But prosecutors and investigators and lawyers, anybody who's ever been involved in a lawsuit knows, move at their own pace. And it's interesting because first some of the president's lawyers were saying this is going to be over by Thanksgiving. Then they said by the end of the year. Then they said in a couple of weeks. Well, when you hear all of this stuff and all the interviews that are going on, my guess is we're talking months before this is over. And one suggestion has been that one of the reasons the lawyers keep saying it's almost over is they're trying to keep the president's blood pressure under control.
An audience of one.